Hello! In this video, I'm going to be talking about intertextuality in interactive narratives, and we'll use God of War, Ghost of Sparta as the case study for this. It'll be quite a short video, I think, because it's quite simple. But the basic idea of intertextuality is that a text gains its meaning through its relationship to another text or other texts. And in the case of God of War, Ghost of Sparta, those other texts are quite numerous, I suppose, but include basically a whole lot of ancient myths and legends from ancient Greece. So we'll just have a look at how this all plays out. So this was for the PSP, and I apologize because I'm running this on an emulator, and I don't have the sound going because I think the sound would be all crackly and gross. But you'll see the subtitles and you'll get an idea of the basic story. Kratos has gone to war with the gods. I think he's sick of being their slave, and he's gone and killed all sorts of people. But the basic jam of these PSP God of War games is that he's attempting to reunite with his family. I think he meets his mum, and she's in the afterlife in Hades, and he meets his daughter. She's in the Elysian Fields. I think he catches up with his brother at some point. But all of these characters that he meets up with and encounters and often kills are based on the gods of the ancient Greek legends and that entire mythology. So the games, so I'm actually not that familiar with the original PlayStation 2 games, but the PSP ones for sure, I've played both of them, Ghost of Sparta and whatever the other one was called. They're quite disjointed in terms of the narrative. You often feel like you're just running from one sort of cutscene or one encounter with a god to another in some sort of interesting but fairly generic location, killing whoever you have to kill and then moving on. And it's often quite hard to follow the narrative progression or the development of characters or the development of any kind of meaningful plot as such, beyond just these kind of random encounters with the gods. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because the game kicks ass and you just get to kill lots of people, and it's really fun to just run around in this kind of environment. And that's where intertextuality works to the game's favour. I think if this was any other setting with any other kind of character, you might end up with just a fairly generic brawler. But I think it's partly the setting and the fact that you engage with this rich mythology and these characters and these gods who are all kind of pretty wild and zany and evil and mischievous, and it's the familiarity with that setting that actually makes this game interesting and cool. And that's the benefit of intertextuality. And intertextuality can also affect the genre of a game. So it kind of makes sense that this game should be an action-packed brawler, partly because of the nature of those Greek legends, which were so often framed by violence and by battles and these epic encounters where titans face off against the gods, and where gods fight each other, and where gods fight mortal men and all sorts of things. So I think this is something to consider when you start to develop your own interactive narratives. In the case of God of War, the intertextuality is very obvious. It's very sort of in your face, because the game is constantly bombarding you with these characters like Zeus and Athena and Hercules and all the rest of them. The whole gang are there for you to kill and dismember and do whatever you have to do to them. But intertextuality can also be a little bit more subtle at times. But it's something that can enrich a text, and it can enrich a game in terms of its meaning. And in the case of God of War, even though the plot is fairly thin, the sort of narrative framework, the characters and the environments and the overall vibe of the game, for lack of a better word, gains depth and sort of intrigue purely because the player is familiar with the overall setting, in a way, and the original texts that help bring meaning to this game. So that's intertextuality. It's just when a text gains its meaning through other texts. So in this case, the whole litany of all sorts of ancient Greek myths and legends. Kratos, of course, is this kind of invented character who acts as our guide, I guess, through all of these adventures, and he kind of interlinks and crosses over with all these other ancient myths and legends. So it's pretty sweet. Obviously, it doesn't have to be ancient Greek myths and legends. It could be any other text that you've encountered and that you've enjoyed, and intertextuality can be brought into your narrative to help add meaning, and that's really the crux of it.